Five, four, three. Always work on this three, two, one. How's it going, guys? Once again, we're here for the Jason J. Daniel Show. I'm Jason J. Daniel. Thanks for chiming in. Today's been crazy. It's been a busy day. Doing a lot of podcasting, a lot of content. There's a lot going on in the world. I am going to do some state politics for you tonight. So, welcome, guys. Welcome, everybody, back to my show. Grateful to have you back here, especially if you are a returning visitor or viewer. I really appreciate that. And new people are always welcome. New visitors are definitely welcome, and I appreciate that. I'm live on Rumble, live on TikTok. I'm sorry, not TikTok. I'm on TikTok all the time for sports, but I'm live on X, YouTube right now, and Rumble. And we're just checking our sound here. Okay, right on. We're gonna check our sound for tonight. Sorry, guys, I gotta hold on here. Okay, cool. Thanks for watching. So we are going to talk state politics. Haven't had a chance to talk about Gavin Newsom. I got to get that out of here. Okay, cool. Sometimes it's a little tricky with the whole monitor mic thing, but needed to get that out of my ear. I'm your host, Jason J. Daniel. We're going to talk some state politics. Haven't had a chance to talk about Gavin Newsom and the Cal Fire raises that he denied. It's a crazy story because when you get into the details, you are going to ask yourself, why would Gavin Newsom, with all of the heat and the negativity that he's been taking on with how he's handling fires and how that went terribly wrong for him and he'll never recover politically from it, why would he go to a great length to veto a bill that was bipartisan? Like bipartisan, almost 100% across the aisle to give Cal Fire raises, first responders to the fires. Why would he do that? I have a theory. It's probably not going to be hard to guess that theory, but I'll give you some evidence. We'll dig into it. Another thing that we're going to talk about is give you a little picture of Gavin there. We're going to also talk about, according to the whole fire theme, we're going to talk about the Palisades fire. It was started by a radical kind of a protester. They caught the guy and they're going to prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law. Everybody's excited about it. Pammy Bondi's excited about it. Gavin's excited about it. It's a good catch. I guess it was a whole combined effort to catch this guy. He is some sort of a protester, but he could be a left wing nut. We're still trying to get the details on that. And then so who knows, right? Who knows if that guy is like did it to send a political message? Kind of unclear. Before the whole political violence thing became a thing, he started this fire. Looks like he's a protester, some sort of a weird kind of it was like he's like a fire protester or thought that would be a smart thing to do. The details are really sketchy, but I'll show you the guy if you haven't heard about it. It's a very underreported story, but there's a whole lot going on right now in the world, especially in state politics. The Katie Porter thing took precedent. Also, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Potatoes Porter. What is interesting is that she could totally lose her opportunity to run for governor because of this potato story. The hot mashed potatoes story is becoming a thing again, and I talked about it extensively over the last couple of days, and I think last Friday. Yeah, it's been like a week. So check that out. I've done a lot of stuff on it in my archive, but we'll talk about it again. But let's talk about Gavin. Gavin hates Cal Fire. Pretty obvious. He hates Cal Fire, and he had an opportunity to show some love to the firemen and women in California. He chose not to. This is baffling everybody. Why would a guy who has so much heat on him, why would he not throw a bone to first responders? Why would he not try to at least show that he has a heart? Because clearly it's a tough job. And because of what goes on in California with fire, it's political, highly political. So why would Gavin veto a bill that would, I think, guarantee a 15% raise across the board, especially when he is sinking 300 million, approximately 300 million in his effort to fight Trump, to rig the redistricting, to rig essentially elections? It's wild, to change the line so they can get more seats of power for the Democrats. This is going to cost them almost $300 million, and we'll talk about that cost. So when you juxtapose that cost, if you juxtapose the cost of that, now obviously raises across the board for Cal Fire maybe what 4 or 5 times that much. But when you have the ability to pull the trigger and burn that kind of money, why wouldn't you at least try to throw a bone to Cal Fire? It doesn't make sense. Well, it's politics, and we'll talk about why it doesn't make sense to you and me, but it makes sense to him to why he did that. So let's get into that. I have right away a an article from San Francisco Gate. Disappointing and frustrating. Newsom vetoes Cal Fire raises. That is a really, really that's a really, really great headline because it is disappointing and frustrating. Why would he do that? Let's get into it right here. We'll just jump right in. So I will try to break down what the reporting is, and then I'll read between the lines. We'll also look at the actual bill. We'll go right to the government AB, the website. We'll look at AB 1309, which is the bill that he vetoed, and we'll try to figure out why. Let me get rid of these commercials here. Okay, so let's see here. California firefighters say they are gutted after Gavin Newsom vetoed a bill Friday that would have raised wages for Cal Fire employees. Assembly Bill 1309, introduced by a Republican, Heath Flora of Ripon. Now, Ripon is like Central California, if you're not sure where that's at. Not a lot of people know where Ripon is, but it's very red. Okay, Ripon is, it's the reddest of the red. My county's pretty red where I live, but it's pretty red. So this would have required Cal Fire to pay firefighters within 15% of the average pay of 20 local fire departments across the state in the same ranks. It would have also required Cal Fire's human resources to conduct a survey of fire chief salaries, which is interesting. Now, one of the knocks on fire in California and maybe in other states is that fire chiefs get paid a ton of fucking money and they don't do a whole lot. Now, that's a criticism. So I'll have to say there probably is more balancing that can be done, and this would have looked into that. Probably allocated some of these larger pensions to some of the younger firefighters who have families. Now, this survey wouldn't have been required until 2 years from now. So in recent years, SF Gate goes on to say, Cal firefighters have argued to increase pay. It's always a thing in California. It's always a thing every year. The union, legislatures, the legislators want to do this. It looks good for them, right? And who doesn't want to try to give firefighters, police, first responders more money? I mean, liberals don't, but who wouldn't want to do that, right? And politically, it's a good thing in most cases. So again, why would Gavin Newsom do this? For years, they've been argued for increased wages to recruit, retain highest qualified, skilled firefighters. That's what the bill states. Now, we'll get into the text, but SF Gate is saying, according to the bill text, wildfires throughout the past decade have resulted in more than 100 deaths, billions of dollars, and yada, yada, yada of damage. And then goes on to talk about climate change. Now, here's what's really interesting about this legislation, and thanks for watching, guys. We're talking about Gavin Newsom burning Cal Fire, just basically telling them to fuck themselves, putting the middle finger up and saying, I'm not going to pass any, Gavin's saying, I'm not going to pass any legislation that helps Cal Fire or makes you guys look good. Why? That's the question. Why? So we're digging in some of these articles here. So the legislation, which is interesting, it's called AB 1309. We'll look at it. It won big bipartisan support, according to the article. And it took some time to get through the legislature, and it's hard to get these bills passed, especially in California, and especially when it's written by a Republican. That's crazy, right? This was authored by a Republican, and everybody thought it was a great idea. Everybody, I think one person voted no or something in the legislature. The Senate, here we go. The Senate voted unanimously, minus one absence. I think that's what. Oh no, here that's the minus one absence, and then the state assembly, only one member, Republican Carl DeMaio of San Diego, voted no. So that's interesting. Now I'll have to dig into that. I follow Carl on X. He seems to be, an anti Newsom waste guy. Maybe he thought that this was he agrees with Newsom, which is a shock to me. He absolutely hates Newsom. They fight all the time, him and Kevin Kiley. So it's interesting to me why he would vote no. So I'll try to reach out to him. I think I might have reached out to him earlier to try to get on my show. He's a busy guy. He has his own podcast, but that's interesting. According to a letter from Newsom, oh, here we go. He vetoed the bill. Here's what Newsom said. He vetoed the bill because it would create significant cost pressures for the state and undermine the collective bargaining process of salary raises. Establishing a statutory floor for employees of a single department undermines this process to the detriment of both state and other bargaining units. Okay, so is that to protect the unions? Now, Flora says, okay, Flora, the guy the Republican in Ripon who sponsored the legislation, and he served as a volunteer firefighter for more than 15 years. So I think he knows what he's talking about. He plans to continue the conversation about pay raises, he said, and he'll continue. That's what he told the paper. And he says, as a former Cal firefighter, this one hits hard. I've been in their boots. I know how demanding the job is and what it takes to keep Californians safe during the long and brutal fire seasons. These firefighters deserve a pay raise that reflects the weight of that responsibility. So I will say this. This is a complicated situation. Unions involved, more salary and raises. That's all super complicated. Now, from the outset, it looks like, okay, why don't we just give them the raises? I agree with that. In fact, the optics are terrible. And Newsom doesn't care about the optics. And essentially, anybody can say no to a raise because they're leveraged to the unions. That could be it. I think that's one of the things. But again, the optics are super terrible, and the media has been really bad on it. Now, the mainstream media usually in California usually helps Newsom out a little bit, but it seems like they're kind of in the middle on this. It seems like they're leaning more towards criticizing him, or at least presenting the argument that it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially since it was a bipartisan effort. So let's talk about the actual AB 1309, and this is interesting to me. This will shed some light on the subject. Let's go right to it. Okay, so this is what it looks like we're just going to go right to the legislation. This is the website. This is Cal Matters Digital Democracy. So this website keeps track of all of the bills that run through California State Assembly. Okay. So here we go. So the current status of this bill was vetoed, so it failed. Look how far it got. Introduced, first chamber, committee review, second chamber, but it stopped short of being enacted. So let's also dig a little deeper in the status here, which is interesting. So this thing started earlier this year, ran through pretty quick. All right, it took most of the year. And then it gets vetoed, enrolled, presented to the governor, and then it got vetoed on October the 3rd. And then here's Heath Flora, the author of the bill. Let's just jump to his picture right here. He's in Ripon. Obviously, it's like kind of agricultural, right? It's Central California. They deal with water issues. Water's a thing. And here's some more coverage of him. Let's look at his bio. Heath, 42, a lifelong farmer who spent 3 summers as a firefighter for Cal Fire. He's a battalion chief for his volunteer fire department. Okay, so he's involved in farming, and he's deeply involved in the fire department. That's what they were saying, 15 years. He also owns a company that sells used agricultural equipment. Okay. Oh, wow. I didn't know this. This looks like there's some some scandals here for this cat. Let's dig into it. Oh, this is getting interesting. Now, this is Cal. This is Cal Matters Digital Democracy. So this is not the state website, but this is like a watchdog website. This is interesting. Okay, and this is a great website, guys. If you're interested in California stuff, I know I'm a junkie, political junkie. This is interesting. Now, this isn't part of the. This is interesting. This is not part of the story, but it says here they accused him of having an affair with. Oh, a lobbyist accused him of having an affair with her. What? Okay, hold on. A former lobbyist for the medical association had an affair with her while he was married with two children. His wife filed for divorce. Okay, whatever. That's hearsay, scandal stuff. We'll see. But let's go back. Okay, so now this guy's heavily leveraged with fire. He's trying to get some money to the fire department. Now, clearly, he's going to win re-election whenever he's up. I'm not sure when he's up here. Clearly, Heath would be. Let's look when he's up here. Okay, so he's been in there for a long time. Okay, this guy wins elections. He really doesn't have a problem here. They're saying he's very far to the right on his ideology. This is an interesting website. That would make sense. Okay, so he's definitely trying to make sure that his people are taken care of. And if he represents a lot of the fire in his area, a lot of the people that work in the fire department, Cal Fire, that's admirable. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. But he's heavily leveraged, clearly. It says here the existing law provides that in order for the state to recruit firefighters for the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, it is the policy of the state to consider prevailing salaries and benefits prior to making salary recommendations. Existing law requires Department of Human Resources, in order to provide comparability in pay, to take into consideration the salary and benefits of other jurisdictions. Okay, so it's complicated, right? So it could be that Gavin thought the unions would hate this and it would really cause a problem with his fundraising. I believe he gets money from the fire union. I could be wrong, but the unions love him. And let's look at the analysis here. Let's see here. Oh, this is a little more complicated, but anyway, so go to Digital Democracy if you're more interested to dig into that a little bit. But I think it's interesting. I think let's getting to the point here, and I'm trying to work this out in my mind to try to find a reason that it's not strictly politics, but I think it's a lot of politics. I think one, this guy's a Trump guy, Heath Flora. He's a Republican. He's a Trump guy. Gavin is not going to do anything for Republicans, and he's not going to give them any favors. He's going to continue the assault on Trump's policies, anybody that supports the president. So it could be he's just really trying to screw, the Republicans. Boom. And here's what's interesting. Let me show you this. I thought it was really cool to look at the votes. Look at this. So it gets in. Okay. So it gets in the assembly. It passes. Okay. It passes the committee. Then it gets to assembly of the Standing Committee on Appropriations. It passes almost unanimously. One, I believe that's not there to a missing vote. And then it gets to the assembly floor. It passes. That must be Carl's no vote. And then it gets, you see how it gets all the way through to the Senate floor and passes. It is super rare to see legislation sponsored by a Republican in California to get this far. Now, Carl obviously disagreed with Heath. He agrees with Gavin, which is crazy. So that's going to be interesting to dig into. I'm going to look into that a little bit and try to figure that out. So it's a shock to a lot of people. There is I don't think I've seen this much bipartisan support on a bill in like forever. It's extremely interesting. So let's look at what News 10 said. News 10 did a little thing on it. And there's a little video here. News 10 is a local Sacramento. They cover state politics pretty tightly, award winning. And I know a number of people that work in media there. So they're pretty cool. So Newsom blocks the Cal Fire pay hike is their headline. Union says the veto is dumbfounding. So the union, I thought the union might be down for it, but apparently they're confused. We'll let the commercial go. But I wanted to jump in and watch this video with you to see what their reporting says. about it because apparently the unions are confused by it. We're all confused by it. Let's see here. Let's do our audio. Okay, hold on. All right, let's turn this up a bit and let's see what they have to say. Now, there's different factions in the Cal and the fire union. There's that. And again, I'm ignorant on some of these things. So if you're watching it and you're involved in Cal Fire, and I know some people, um, not enough to where I'd say, "Hey, tell me what is going on." But let me know. I'm open minded if you're watching this and you have some details on it. But the unions are, I guess, down on him about it. The main factions of the unions, the leadership, and budget concerns. I mean, you're spending 300 million on a special election to make your buddies in I guess the nationwide Democrat Party happy. Also, he's definitely trying to make sure he's getting ready for his presidential run, which is already basically kicked off, but he's gonna already need to start raising money now. Maybe this is just a big fu to the Republicans, so he can show that he's tough. I don't know. It's really puzzling. There's Heath, the guy that we talked about. Look at that. That is significant. So Gavin messed up the budget. Is that what it boils down to? He just doesn't know what he's doing in the state, or because of all the impactful fires and all these things, and obviously the economy of California, prices going up, revenues dropping. The legislature has no idea what it's doing with spending. As you can see, most of the legislature are Democrats. Is Gavin saying we have to stop spending money and he's just tightening the belt? But that doesn't, so everyone can be affected. It doesn't matter if it's a conservative issue or a Democrat issue, but that doesn't make sense because he's spending 300 million on a special election. Okay, so he's saying there wouldn't have been an immediate impact on this budget. So he's saying Gavin Newsom is a liar. But the union folks are saying that it's not going to circumvent that process. So who's telling the truth? We got to show a fire truck. So keep in mind, Cal Fire does all the major, outskirts fires, right? Basically the wildfires, and then the local fire departments help here and there. Again, I'm no expert, but that's what Cal Fire is basically fighting your major forest fires, and they organize those that are outside of city limits. So you have those factions, right, of fire. So Cal Fire is underpaid compared to all these other larger cities. They are underpaid. I've heard that. We know that. So they're essentially trying to make, and the state pays, right? Not the city budgets. So there's the two different budget delineations. So this does this does directly affect the budget of California specifically. But like they're saying, it's not right away money coming out, just like like Gavin's stuff is. This is a tiered approach. That is true. When you come into Cal Fire, you're basically making minimum wage, and you have to work yourself up to higher pay. Now, I'll say this. I do know that it depends on the hours you get, the structure, the schedule, and how much tenure you have. Gavin sure loves to do press conferences, right? And with Cal Fire, but he doesn't want to give them the raise or even give them the ability to work on it. That is interesting, right? Let's drop that. So that's interesting. Even the local media, they have no clue why he vetoed it. Heath, who was apparently Heath Flora was apparently able to bring everybody together for a bipartisan effort. There, he's surprised. Everybody in the legislature voted for it. Now, maybe the Democrats, it could be the Democrats did it to save face, to look good, knowing that Gavin was going to veto it, knowing it wasn't going to pass. So he'd give them political cover because they're just not going to give the Republicans anything. So you might be asking, what's your theory, Jason? Well, I'll give you my theory. Give me just one more moment to give you more information. Let's look at, because we want to dig into all of the stories that I think are relevant. Now, Daily Mail, they're now look, they have a US edition. They're on top of California stuff because Gavin is scandalous. Now this is a UK folks, but they do have a US edition. I want to read what they wrote about it. Now they're saying California's Dem governor Gavin Newsom blocks pay rise. They call it pay rise. Maybe that's supposed to be raise. Maybe that's a typo for brave state firefighters. Well, that is true. Okay, just months after the LA wildfires, the optics are crazy. The optics are crazy. So there's a lot of ads on this, but here we go. Okay, so California Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom has vetoed a bill calling to give state firefighters a raise just months after the devastating wildfires. He refused to sign bipartisan 1309 that would have secured wage raises for the state's firefighting service. It was introduced by Heath Flora. We talked about that. The bill requires the state to pay firefighters within 15% of the average salary for corresponding ranks in the 20 local fire departments. So, like we talked about earlier, this is not an automatic raise like right away. It's going to take some surveys. There's going to be money spent to take a look at what the pay is throughout the areas. Clearly, they have a concept that they're underpaid, and within 15% of the average salary, that's not bad. I don't think that's bad at all. So they're also trying to recruit people to get into the fire game. Now, it's a great job if you can get in, but it's a lot of hard work, physical fitness. It's very demanding. You're saving lives. You have to protect yourself out there. Again, I know people who are in Cal Fire, so I have a concept of how it works, but it takes years to rise through the ranks and to make a ton of money, and you're seasonal right away. You have to earn basically your tenure because once you start growing in the organization, well, they're going to invest more time and money in you because it's hard to find very good first responders and firefighters, and they're all, most of them are working hours and hours, and their families are suffering because they're on call all the time. But also there's the bottom ranked ones that aren't getting enough hours, right? So it's just there's this disparagement of pay, and it would be important for these guys and gals to get paid fairly. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's, especially after what's been going on, with the fires in California. Tim Edwards, president of Local 2881, says it's disappointing and frustrating. And they're pulling from SF Gate, which seemed to have a really good beat on the story. Cal Fire's an all-risk fire department, just like San Francisco Fire Department or Santa Rosa or San Jose Fire. What does that mean? All risk means they pay for everything. Their budget, they don't have any other funding streams except their general budget. Like cities have different funding streams that they can pull from, but Cal Fire is specific to their own particular funding stream. We don't have the staffing they do. We don't have the work week like they do. And we definitely don't have the pay like they do, the other fire departments. But we do exactly the same job with the same training. We're expected to do the exact same services. Now, they are more specialized, Cal Fire, because they're doing wildfires, which basically threaten the state. I mean, it's insane. Now, the wildfires, what we saw in LA, they got into the valley, right? And then they hit the cities, and then everybody's involved. And whenever there's a big major fire, they do pull from local fire departments to a certain extent to help fight these fires, because it gets so out of control in California. But like they're saying here, it's an increasing threat to the state. Throughout the past decade, wildfires have killed more than 100 people, and like we talked about before, so it's the same talking points, the same thing that they're telling these articles. Here's some pictures of Newsom walking around, not knowing what he's doing, looking like a fool, and then there's him trying to act like he's President douchebag. So what do I think? Guys, thanks for watching Jason J. Daniels Show. We're talking about Newsom burning Cal Fire. What do I think? Well, I think it boils down to two things. One, Gavin Newsom's never going to do anything for a state legislator who is so far to the right. Never going to do that. Number two, he needs all the money he can get to the special election. Three, he's essentially a lame duck. He's not going to be able to run again. He's already looking at president. He's not doing anything for the state. He's just not. He's hanging out. Maybe he does his vetoes. He's doing press conferences that are pointless. He's doing podcasts all the time. He's in DC. He's fundraising. He's clearly trying to run for president. He's complaining because he couldn't get on Joe Rogan's podcast. It's just the guy is not focused on being the governor. He's already checked out. So he's not going to do anything to help any of us. And plus, I'll say this, Cal Fire and the fire departments throughout the state, everybody involved in the fires, highly critical of Newsom. They were highly critical because of the water. They were ratting him out, him and Karen Bass. Gavin Newsom had no idea how to solve the problems of the fires, and Trump and the federal government had to get in and had to help and had to turn the water on. We all know that there's a water problem in the state of California because they're dumping the water in all these different areas. They're dumping it in the oceans. It's just really complicated. And so on top of staffing the crisis, to try to get folks to recruit them and train them, you can't just bring somebody in and overnight they're going to be able to fight fires without going through that training. And it's a tough job as it is. They're understaffed. Every year, you're going to be risking your life because California can't get it under control. And now there's a budget shortfall that he's trying to ignore, and he's spending more money. He's just out of control. So I think it's pure politics. I think he doesn't want to help anybody in Cal Fire. He doesn't want to help anybody who had anything to do with not defending him when it came to his bumbling of the fire crisis. And also, he's not going to help any kind of conservative that creates legislation in California. Why now? Speaking of conservatives, why Carl voted no against it? I'm interested. Why he agreed with Newsom. That's interesting to me. And why it was bipartisan, I think because the Democrats got together and said, let's just put this through because it's good for us politically. It looks good for getting votes. It looks like we tried, but we knew the whole time that Gavin Newsom was going to veto it and provide us cover because we're not going to do one fucking thing for the Republicans. We're not going to do anything to help any Republicans win. It is a dogfight. If they can stop any legislation that a Republican sponsors, it's going to hurt the Republican. Now, clearly, Mr. Flora has been in the legislature for almost 10 years. It's in 2016. He's pretty clear on winning his district. unless it gets redrawn. And that's something that Gavin's definitely working on. When I get a chance, we're going to do a redistricting show. We're going to talk more about that. There's some time. Mail-in ballots have already gone out. I've got mine sitting right here on my desk. I haven't had a chance to go through it, but we're going to talk about that. I'm going to bring some people to talk about 50 because it's the redistricting is hyper complicated. There's a lot of more smarter people than me that are involved that can help. So before I dig into it, I want to kind of get some guests and have a special show. But one last thing on this. I want to talk about the cost of Proposition 50 because I think that's interesting to balance that. It's interesting to look at that. So let's and again, if you're just joining me, Gavin Newsom hates Cal Fire. He hates them. Man, that's easy, but it's easy. That's an easy political win. He says yes to it. Everybody's happy. He gets good publicity and it's an easy win. That's why I'm blown away. Now I know he's an idiot, and I'm not trying to give him any kind of props that he was doing the right thing for California because he's never done the right thing for California. Look at the energy prices and what he's done with gas prices and there was a refinery that blew up. That's going to raise prices. There's all sorts of things that Gavin Newsom doesn't care about with California. He does not care about the issues that affect people in California. Again, because he's a lame duck and he's on his way out and he wants to be the president. But my question, I guess my hypothetical question is, when a guy like this could easily take a win to soften his stance on being at war with Republicans and his rhetoric and his silliness and the social media foolishness and the celebrity thing that he's trying to do, and he's just always looks like he's not on the mark. Why would a guy like that who could take an easy win, why wouldn't he take it? I think it's clearly a designed position to show the nationwide Democrats that he can be the next president or at least candidate. I think everything Gavin Newsom does, and this is the point. This is where I'm going. I think every single thing he does, every podcast, every email, everybody he talks to, every post on Twitter, X, is designed to get him the nomination. Because if he can get the nomination, Gavin Newsom will actually be a part of history on the positive side. He's so on the negative side of history, especially in California. There's no way he's going to ever rehabilitate his image as a good executive of a city or a state until he gets that golden goose, which is the Democrat nomination and fight for in the general election. Then everything changes. It changes your history, changes your trajectory. Look at anybody who has run for president, losing or winning. You don't talk about how bad they were of an executive or how bad they were of a legislator or how bad Kamala Harris was for an AG or how bad of a vice president she was. It's all about the last thing you did, especially when it comes to presidential politics. You're forever in history as someone who almost made it. When you talk about Al Gore, Dukakis, you talk about those that lost. Gavin Newsom knows he's going to lose. No one would vote for him. Now, he might believe he has a chance, and anything's, I suppose, possible, but no one's going to vote for that lunatic when everything that he has done that's so left-wing and so radical is held in front of the general population of America, and they're challenged, and they're like, vote for this guy or vote for a Republican who is clearly not a lunatic. Gavin Newsom has so much baggage and so much history of failure. There's no way he can win a general. That I'm digressing, but I think one of the ways to break down this decision for him to veto this is it's all a strategy, is to completely do anything he can to get the funds, to raise the Soros money, which he's already in with them deep, to get that golden goose of Democrat money so that he can run and get the nomination. Because clearly right now he's looking like the guy who could probably do it, because there's nobody else that probably could run, I'll be honest, a better campaign than Newsom can run, because he is a trench fighter. He does not care. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about who he uses. He doesn't care about who he burns. And he doesn't care about Cal Fire. That's pretty obvious. So let me just jump in And let's take a look at the cost of Proposition 50. So I looked up the cost of Proposition 50 on Google. Now, this is Google. This isn't Grok. This is Google. And Google's very, look, they give to the Democrat Party. We know they kind of rigged these search results. Google is very, I'm going to say it's going to be more favorable to Gavin, right? Okay. Hold on real quick. Sorry, guys. So thanks for watching, guys. Jason J. Daniel. Jason J. Daniel Show. Thank you if you're new. Appreciate it. Please give me a follow. It's absolutely free, or a like on X. Thanks, guys, for watching. So Proposition 50. Here is now this is being aggregated from the internet. The special election cost. I think it's important to look at denying Cal Fire money, which is essentially denying money. If you think about it, it's a budget cut towards stopping fire. And Gavin himself said it's a budget cut. All right. Even though the union's saying it's not really a budget cut, it's not going to cost you anything, Gavin is painting the picture that he's trying to save money. Okay. So let's look at it that way. The overall cost of his special election, which is to try to win the Democrats' seats, is $282 million, which includes county reimbursement to pay for all of the election costs. The counties run the elections. It's a special election that they're having to jam together really fast next month, and state administration, and $31 million of state monies allocated to the Secretary of State to cover admin costs such as printing and mailing. Now, we do know there's a voter guide error, and I have a theory on that too. So we'll talk about that again. We're going to do some stuff next week on Proposition 50, but I wanted to talk about this pay raise thing because it is connected to his attempt to run for president. And so obviously this is the redistricting. So you're looking at $2 million for that. And then there's extra costs, right? They're saying implementation costs. So the cost is going to push, this is probably under, I guess, spitballing under, right, to say 282 million. So 300 million is the number that everybody's looking at. Some people say 350, who knows. So when Gavin, here's the point. It's simple math. When Gavin is saying, I'm trying to save money, he's clearly lying because he doesn't care about saving money. Because if you cared about saving money, you wouldn't burn $300 million on your own ego project, which is what this is. Now, keep in mind, Schwarzenegger did the same thing when he was fighting the Democrats and trying to get his way and change. He was trying to bust the unions because they were battling him every day. And the unions pretty much control California politics. So Schwarzenegger spent a ton of money. It might have been close to this, to do 4 or 5 ballot initiatives, get the signatures, get them on the ballot, forcing these things through to bypass the unions and the legislature, to put it in the hands of Californians. And most of his, when he did his special election, we'll look it up. You can look up those details. And the Netflix special is really amazing. They really cover it in detail. The Schwarzenegger Netflix mini documentary they released last year. It's fantastic. They go over this, shows all sorts of footage. I just watched it, I think, last week again. I might watch it again tonight. I love that stuff, obviously. Schwarzenegger got beat down. I think it was 4 out of 5 initiatives. He might have lost them all. Again, I'm just pulling it out of my memory, so forgive me if I don't have a fact checker. I wish I did. Would be nice. One day we'll have that. We'll have somebody in the studio we'll have a studio that can fact check me. But that was a major defeat for Schwarzenegger. Now, when it comes to Newsom, they're saying that conventional wisdom now is that Newsom might actually pull this off. He might actually pull it off. Today, LA County's mail-in ballots came in, and they're obviously very, very favorable to Proposition 50, but that's LA, right? Which is crazy to me because LA's been so screwed by Newsom. Why would people still vote favorably for him? Well, it's simply good versus evil. They think Trump and Republicans are evil. They think Newsom and the blues are good. The left wing is good. It is a simple split down the middle because of Trump and Newsom and the battles, and everybody's battling. We're all picking sides. It's just the way it is. It's very divided, and that's the way it is right now, basically nationwide. So just bringing that to your attention, I think that's really interesting to look at. It's pretty clear that anything that will help the people of California, Newsom's not going to do it unless it favors his, like Scott Wiener, his little buddy, his mascot, or anyone else in the legislature that worships him. Unless he can get any legislation to help him raise money, help him look like he's beating the Republicans, then he'll do it. If he doesn't get that, he's not going to do it. And that's the bottom line. So it's all politics. So there you go. Gavin hates Cal Fire. And that's, hey, it is disappointing because, you know, I think look, I know some of them, and you probably do too. These are men and women in our community that put their lives on the line. And it's really disappointing. You can look at it however you want. You can blame any side, but it's typical Newsom. If there's something like gas prices, energy prices, food prices, things that can help people, he won't do it. If it helps his buddies and helps his selfish ambitions, he'll do it. It's just the way it is. So let's talk about the Palisades fire starter. So they arrested this guy, and it looks like he might be a left-wing nut. It's interesting. And what is also interesting is he's a Florida man, right? So he's a Florida man. So is he a left-wing radical nut? It's interesting. I'm not quite sure. Now they're trying to put it together. There he is. There's an arm. You're arrested. He looks like he's got that cult look. He's in a cult. He's got that look. He looks very grungy, like he's in a cult. I didn't watch this whole Fox clip, but I'll play it so we can get some context. I might stop it halfway through, but I want to see what they're saying here on Laura Ingraham. And this might jump to commercial.
When my hair started.
So we'll get to that in 12 seconds. So this gentleman is from Florida, and somehow he got involved in the Palisades fire, and they're saying they have enough evidence to prove this is the guy. Here we go.
On the arrest, Bill Assaley, U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, who joins us exclusively tonight. Bill, how were you guys able to track this guy down?
Laura, this was the incredible work of the ATF and our prosecutors. Here's what we know. At midnight of this year, 12 minutes after midnight, the fire started. Mr. Ritneck was the only person at the location of the origin of this fire.
They probably used a cell phone to track him. Oh, I guess sorry, Fox is a little weird. Okay, here we go.
He called 911 a few times to try to report the fire himself, and we could geolocate him to the exact location of the fire. No one else was there. We've eliminated every other cause of the fire. It was not fireworks. It was not lightning. It was no other cause other than an open flame, likely a lighter.
Jesus, one lunatic with a lighter.
And he made some statements to the ATF. He made false statements. And then we got into his digital devices, and you could see some of the disturbing images he had ChatGPT generate. And he also listened to this odd rap song, a French rap song. He speaks French, which has imagery.
That's interesting. So the Florida man, interesting. The Florida man speaks French, and he burns the Palisades of California. That's interesting, right? That's weird.
One burning things. So we have eliminated basically every other suspect and cause other than the defendant who we charged today.
Do we know anything else about him? I know you can't prejudice the case, but anything else you can share with our viewers tonight about what compelled him to this fascination with chaos and destruction?
Yeah, I can't get too much of the motive, Laura, but I will tell you, he was very familiar with this area. He used to live in this neighborhood.
Okay.
He is an Uber driver.
Oh, that's right. He's an Uber driver. There you go. Uber's interesting, man. I'd love to talk about that. The way that Uber is now, they're implementing, because the people that are driving are so sketchy nowadays. If you drive Uber, I'm not specifically talking about you, but from what I'm seeing is they're implementing all sorts of different technology to protect people from the drivers. It's like, why don't you just get people that aren't going to hurt you?
Someone off in that neighborhood. It was around midnight. He seemed to be maybe down or depressed, and he was trying to get a hold of a friend, and he decided to go up on the hill and light this fire shortly after midnight.
So
usually is resulting from anger, resentment, desire to be known or somehow famous or infamous. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
When we think about the complete devastation of the area, it looks like a nuclear bomb was dropped on the Palisades. Yeah. And a lot of people are never going to rebuild, being bought up by private equity, Chinese buyers coming in and buying those lots.
Well, so he's going to jail forever. I mean, innocent until proven guilty, but that's crazy. That is just crazy. So is, so he's obviously a left wing radical or just a weird protester. Now so later on down this article, or is there a different article I pulled? There's pictures, or you can find them online. There's pictures of him here it is. Here it is. I got it. It's the Dateline or Deadline, sorry, which is a newspaper for mostly covers entertainment and television. Thanks for watching, guys. Jason J. Daniels Show. Talking about Gavin tonight. I back it up if you just joined me late. I was talking about my theories on why he vetoed the Cal Fire raise. So we're doing state stuff today, and then now we're talking about Mr. I didn't even say this guy's name. His name is okay. So they're saying he's an evil guy, does evil things, and his name is he's a 29-year-old Uber driver from Florida, Jonathan Renderneck. Some of these names are tricky for me. He was arrested in Florida. They're calling him a Florida man, and he killed 12 people and decimated 5,400 homes. It is one of the worst arson crimes, I think, in history, at least in California history. And now they're quoted here as saying the investigators, people do evil things for whatever reason. They're not going to speculate, but they're just trying to figure it out. They'll address it at trial. Now, here's the criminal complaint. We're not going to get into that, but if you want to go to Deadline, you can read it. Now, usually they cover entertainment, but obviously this affected a lot of entertainers and actors and affected the entertainment industry in LA. So charges are destruction of property by means of fire. And so it's a federal charge. The feds are on it. He's looking at a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 behind bars and a statutory of 20 in federal prison. They're going to give him more than that. He's not ever going to get out of jail. He killed 12 people. I mean, it's manslaughter of 12 people. You could also maybe make a good case for murder. Why would he ever get out? It's crazy if he's found guilty. So what's interesting here, there's some pictures here and they break down, where they found him. And these images here are from the federal complaint. He had ChatGPT create images of burning things down, fire, burning down cities. These are actually the images from his phone or computer. And then he put some info in ChatGPT that said, he asked ChatGPT if you at fault if a fire must be lit because of your cigarettes. Now, he did this in 2024, and he created the images of the burning city. Then, like they were saying on the video, he tried to call 911 a few times, so kind of putting himself on the trail. He took video on his iPhone, right? And then they're referencing this hip-hop song in French, which is essentially a protest song, burning down cities. And there you go. So it's really hard to fathom how people get to this point, but they're clearly not thinking like normal people. And is he a radical? Was he doing it for more left-wing violence? I don't know. We'll have to see. It's clearly not obvious, or I think the Trump folks would have already made a thing out of it. They need to dig deeper, and he's probably not talking, right? So they're having to go through his phones and trying to figure things out. He doesn't have a manifesto, or if he does, they probably need to verify it, make sure that the evidence is legit, because if they put it out there and say this is more radical violence, well, they have to be able to prove that, right? Have that stand up in court, you would think. But that's the story on that. So it's interesting. It's really sad to think about those 12 people that died. And a lot of people blame Newsom. I blame Newsom and Bass for all of that mess. We know that Newsom had tremendous failures in his administration. But when the fires start, you got these lunatics, right, that come out and they just jump in because they're mentally deranged and they don't care about anybody. And it's just a terrible thing. It's a tragedy, and I feel for everyone that lost the lives of those people, and obviously the people that lost homes. It's just a terrible thing. And like Laura Ingraham was saying, Chinese are coming in and buying up it's the real estate will never be the same. So there's that. And the other story I'm tracking is Katie Porter potatoes. she's were her governor chances flushed down the drain because of all of her weird activities this week. I won't go into it deeply, but you can check out my last video I did on it. She in I think it was 2012, she went through a nasty divorce, and in the court documents, her ex-husband said that she was making mashed potato. He was making mashed potatoes, and she came in and she said, "You're not following the directions." And she started yelling at him. And then she took the mashed potatoes and dumped them on his head and scalded him. And there's all sorts of other domestic violence and just craziness in those documents. So check out my last video I did on it. I get right into the details. I dropped it a few days ago. So the conversation is, is this it? Because now everybody's going through it to see, they look at her background, of her weirdness, dressing up, cosplaying during votes, just being a slob, being weird, yelling at people, screaming at her staff. There's video coming out of her just being just a total raging maniac and a douchebag. And then there's also, and I'm going to cover this later on, there also is an incident of her boyfriend a few years ago, 5 years ago, now 2020, who got into an altercation with a Trump supporter, beat him up so he got bloody and was arrested. So she has political violence in her story, but they're not covering that. But we'll talk about that maybe next week. So interesting stuff. And so I wanted to just get into a little bit of California on your Friday night. That's it, guys. We're wrapping up. So those are the three main stories. Cal Fire, interesting. Gavin's burning Cal Fire, all for politics. And the Palisades guy, they caught him. So that's interesting. It'll be interesting to follow up on that. And then we have, obviously, Potatoes Porter, who clearly is not going to be the front runner for the Democrats. There's got to be somebody else. They're already saying no one's going to give her money. Her chances are over. And if you're interested in all of her personal drama, you can check out my last video. So speaking of that, I appreciate you guys so much. Next week, we're going to talk about, let's preview next week. Some interesting stuff in crime we're going to talk about next week. I've got some really cool interviews coming up. We're going to do some Bay Area stuff, which is, I like to do that. So I've got some friends in the Bay Area. We're going to do some Bay Area updates. I've got a couple of interviews lined up, which should be great, right? So if we can make those happen, which we're looking good. You never know. I always stay flexible. Everybody, they're busy. They have lives. It's an honor and a privilege to have people interview and talk about these things because the audience is growing. And speaking of that, thank you for watching, guys. Thank you for sharing my show. My shows are getting shared on Rumble every day. I appreciate that. I get the notifications. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed, I'd really appreciate that. Please subscribe. YouTube is growing. Rumble is doing really well. The views are into the thousands. So thank you, guys. If you haven't subscribed on Rumble, please do. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please do. Also on Twitch, our Twitch audience is growing. Thank you, guys. And I see you guys. I see the numbers. So thank you. And I can see you guys live when we're on. So I appreciate that. If you just join me, I'm wrapping up. Jump to the beginning of the show. You can do that. We talk about Gavin, I gave you my theories on why he vetoed the Cal Fire raises, which everybody thought was a great idea. That shouldn't have happened, but it did. I'll give you my theories if you jump. You'll see my theories if you jump to the beginning. And we talk about the Palisades fire guy who was arrested, which is it's sad. So thanks for subscribing or following on X or Twitch. And if you are interested, you can follow me on the other socials. You can follow my life on those socials. I do sports on TikTok. So If you're into the TikTok, Real Jason J. Daniel, that's my sports account. You'll see some of that on YouTube too. So we do sports. We also do politics. I do a lot. Right now is a heavy political season, so we do a lot of that. I like to do interesting corruption, true crime. I like to do interesting things that cross over, right? Sports and politics are always fun to me. True crime and politics are obviously connected. That's always fun to me. So I appreciate your support on that. If you're interested, check that out. But TikTok, a lot of sports on that. So thank you guys for everything. And I appreciate you guys. And again, we just no judgment, just doing the facts here. I guess I could. I have a little judgment on the Democrats, but I try to give you the facts so you can decide for yourself. Thanks for watching, and go with God. Stay safe, guys. Have a great weekend. Friday show in the books. Take care. God bless.